Alright guys, so in case if you watched the previous video, you would know this thing has some horrible steering radius. It's like barely turns. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make another bracket here, but I'm not gonna come out as long. So that's what I did, and I shouldn't have done that. I was trying to make it even or equal to here, but I didn't realize this is offset here, so, and plus this distance is going to give a crazy ratio, a crazy turn ratio, a crazy steering ratio. So what I'm going to do is create a bracket right here, somewhere right here, and then just move the tie rod over here. I may have to extend it because the distance of this is only for this hole here. I already did that here because this tie rod was a little too short anyways. By the way, these are tie rods that I made on my reverse trike, the one with suspension. I already have this bracket kind of machined out a little bit. This bracket was originally going to go here to hold the bearing. I couldn't do that because this shaft is not concentric with the handlebars here. So every time I turn, it will bind up, and that's because when I welded it, it's not completely straight with the shaft. So that's fine. I'm going to reuse this because these holes here that I drilled out is 5/16, which is perfect for the tie rod. So I'm just going to weld it on here. And yes, I'm going to keep the Ackerman angle. I'm just going to tie a piece of string here on the kingpin and route it all the way to the rear axle back here, right in the center. Anywhere along that string, I can weld this bracket here, and I'll have Ackerman for the tire that I do it on, and I'm gonna do it for both sides. I can hook up my brakes. Yes, I know this wheel has a wobble in it. This wheel has actually some pretty bad wobble. Well, you can't tell. These spokes, they're new, but they're not true. So I gotta come in and true them up. But this was just a donor wheel anyways. This was only temporary. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get to this. So it's all welded up on both sides. I did get underneath, so I got beads on top and underneath, so it is a pretty strong connection now.
That's a lot of it.
Alright, so I don't know if this camera's picking it up good, but my steering shaft bent. I took this thing out just for a little quick ride, just testing out the brakes. Oh, by the way, I got my brakes hooked up. That's that. They work fine, except for this tire, because this tire wobbles. Not getting some good clamping action here because of that wobble, but it does stop. Besides that, this wheel will be replaced. This is just a donor wheel. I will be getting a different wheel on here. The reason why it wobbles is because these spokes aren't true. I still have to go in and tighten these spokes up a little bit better. But this thing was turning good for like the first 3 minutes of it, and then I noticed this thing was turning pretty bad, and my steering radius was getting really horrible. It's getting large again, to the point where I couldn't steer it anymore. It was just that bad. So I brought it back in here and I looked, and this shaft is completely bent. I noticed because there was a huge wobble down here, and when I welded this, I knew there was a little slight wobble. Yeah, see that? It's not even turning, it's just, it's so bad it's just moving because of this bend right here. This piece here is 3/4 inch tubing. It's, I believe, the wall thickness. I don't remember the wall thickness. It's really thin. It's like 1/16 of an inch. So it's thin walled tubing, which is not ideal, but originally I was going to have a bearing down here. And with that bearing down there, I wouldn't have to worry about this bending because that bearing would take a lot of that force. But because I welded this thing on and there was a slight little wobble, just a little tiny one, it was binding up on that bearing and I couldn't turn because that wobble was just enough to prevent the bearing from doing its job. So I'm going to have to redo this whole thing, which is a huge bummer. There's only like 2 ways that I can think of on the top of my head right now how I can do this. The easiest option is just cut this out and just put a 5/8 solid rod all the way down. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to put a bearing. If I do that, I'm not going to be able to put a bearing down there because that shaft has to get absolutely perfect. It has to be perfectly aligned to this piece up here, because there's 2 bearings here, up here on the neck, and if I don't get those shafts aligned, it's just going to bind up on the bearing, on both bearings. The second option would just be to completely just redo this whole top, to redo the entire neck up here and just ditch the bearings and just use different bearings up here instead of the ones that are in there right now. I could do that and then just run a shaft all the way down and just have a bearing down here. I think I'm just gonna opt in and just to cut this out and just put a solid shaft in. If I ever attempt to build something like this again, I'm just gonna ditch the bearings up here. I'm not gonna reuse them. I don't have machine tools. I don't have a lathe or a mill. I don't have precision tools to make brackets and stuff and couplers and make sure everything's all aligned when I weld it on. Yeah, the only tool I have is this thing, and I made this. That way I can put shafts together that are the same diameter and weld them, and they'll be straight and smooth because of this. They'll be clamped down. But unfortunately, you can't do that here because they have different diameters. Yeah, now it doesn't even turn at all. It's awful. But you can see how it wobbles like crazy. This shaft could not handle the force that these wheels transfer through these tie rods here and into this. It cannot handle because of how thin that tubing is. A solid rod, it should be fine with a solid rod. Yeah, ideally you do want a bearing down there. I tried to do it, but it didn't work out for me.
Still hot.
So I got the new steering shaft on. It's a 5/8 rod. I did have to cut and weld it down here because I didn't want to lose this piece and have to redo the bottom there. But you notice, you see the caster kind of lifts the frame up a little bit, so that will, if I sit down on it, the back end it hits the it does that on the back end. So I'm making a left turn because this wheel's powered. The other one's not powered. If this wheel comes up, I'm just going to be spinning out. So I got to be careful with my left turns. Right turns will be fine because then this will be pressed more on the floor. So right turns would be okay. Anyways, I'm gonna go ride this thing at a park, my favorite park. I did ride this thing earlier this week. The turning radius is still kind of wide on it, and well, that's to be expected. This thing is real bulky. Also, the brakes kind of suck. This wheel has a wobble in it, and I haven't replaced it yet. So when I do apply the brakes, this one doesn't clamp on as good as that one. When I ride this thing, when I pull the brakes, I'm gonna have to turn it this way to prevent it from veering off. So I did work on that turning radius. It does have a tighter turning radius. However, there's a trade-off. Because I got a tighter turning radius, this thing's going to be very twitchy, and it likes to dart. It didn't do that with the previous turn radius, so it was like a 3-to-1 almost. That's why I have like an abysmal turning radius, but it was not darty at all. I had full control. However, this new radius, it's more of a 1-to-1. It is a lot more twitchy. And yeah, just like what I stated before, the brakes, they suck. One wheel will catch real good, the other one won't. So it does pull to the side. So that's also why I'm not riding this thing like a freaking beast. So I could see why four-wheel bikes aren't a thing. They're very big and bulky. This thing feels like a tank. It feels really heavy too, but it's real big. Like if I go on a sidewalk, I'm taking the entire sidewalk. There's no way that someone can pass me up on the side. Also with how fast this thing goes, which technically it's not that fast. It goes up like 24 miles an hour. It's not that fast. You know, full throttle. If I remove the governor, it would go a lot faster. Or if I switch the sprockets on, it will go a lot faster. But you don't want to go fast on this. This thing's a good cruiser bike. It's meant to cruise. Maybe go to the grocery store and get some stuff. Yeah. Oh man, so bumpy through here. Does not shine off-road. I don't think I'm gonna go down there. This does not like off-roading. Everything that this bike can do, a regular two-wheeled bicycle or a trike can do better. You know, this bike's not as practical as you think it is. See, this thing is not as top heavy. I can corner a lot better on this versus a trike. However, you know, a bike will beat it out, definitely. You can corner a lot better with a bike because you can lean on it. This thing you cannot lean, so you still got to take corners a little slow. And when it comes to utility, you know, well, a trike it has the basket in back, and you can also add a basket in front, so you can carry stuff too. Even on a bike you can carry a lot of stuff if you put a cargo rack. Also, they're more expensive. These four-wheel bikes, if you try to buy them, they're really expensive, and the parts are just more parts. They're more expensive, they're heavier, they're bulkier, they're bigger, they don't squeeze into areas just as good, and they carry just as much as a regular bike or a trike would. So I could see why, you know, they're extremely, well, trikes are rare, so these are extremely rare. Would I recommend doing it? It depends. If you live in a city, then yeah, these things are good cruisers. You can ride them on the streets as long as the cops leave you alone. Is it street legal? No, it's not street legal, but the cops in my area are okay with stuff like this. You got no shenanigans. You're not being a hooligan out there as long as you're, you know, being safe. Can't say the same for you guys though. If you live in a big city, they probably will say something. If you live in a city, go ahead. But if you live in the dirt, if you live in more of the country, I don't know, because this thing does not have any suspension on it, so you will break your back on it. Every single bump, crack, or just unevenness, you will feel that. But it was a nice, fun project. It's always a learning experience. All these projects are learning experiences. If I were to do it again, I would do it a little different. I don't think I'd do the bicycle wheels in the front. I'd just use regular go-kart wheels. It will look weird. Or no, mini bike wheels. I do mini bike wheels. They're a little bit larger. It would look a little off, but you just use a regular spindle setup. But it'd be a lot easier to just use mini bike wheels because you can use regular go-kart spindles on it. This thing's too darn big. Alright, so there you go. Just cruising this thing around. It is kind of sketchy. I don't know, I think I'm kind of done with this project. It was kind of fun to, you know, mingle with stuff and see what works and what doesn't work. That back end is flawless, man. I can accelerate. No issues up there, but it's still the front end that gives me issues, especially that turning stuff. I think I liked the turning radius before, even though it was very wide. Anyways, I'm done for this. I'm done with this thing here. I don't know what else I'm gonna do to it. If I were to try it again, I'll just redo the front end and I'd put suspension. I want to put suspension on the front, but I don't know if I want to use this platform here. Maybe just build one from the ground up or something. Anyways, I'm calling it for this project. I'm gonna move on to something else. Might steal the engine off of that and put it on one of those. Don't really know what to do next. I do have this go-kart frame here that I bought off of a marketplace. I don't know if I want to use the frame itself. I'll just hack the areas that I need. But it is good metal. It's thick. It's like 10 gauge tubing. Not stuff that you would find at Home Depot, so it is pretty thick metal. And I got this live axle here. It's really thin thin. It's really not that wide. It's basically pretty much the same, almost the same width. But I don't really know what to do with it other than make a trike or make a go-kart of some kind with it. It'll be a little go-kart, like a compact go-kart. I could make that. And I was thinking about doing a friction drive, another one, but a 2.0, a one with an actual clutch on it, so the engine doesn't die when you come to a stop. Or when you move, the engine can be off and you can still pedal the thing. Have some sort of system where you can pivot it or have turnbuckles on it and then have a clutch. I was probably going to rob that engine for this, but anyways though, I'll see you in the next one.